Good morning and welcome to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's a Monday edition of the program. We're glad you're along for the ride. We've got a great show lined up today. First segment, we're going to have Zach Abolverdi, longtime reporter covering the Gators. Also, he has a podcast called Locked on Gators. Second part of the program, we're going to have Gator great Lito Sheppard talking about his college and pro football career and what he's up to these days. But first, we're going to go ahead and kick this thing off and go to the Titan MRI hotline. And we're joined by Zach Abolverdi. Zach, good morning. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. I feel bad for Lito that he's got to follow me up.
Oh, well, you're a good leadoff hitter. You had a lot of speed back in the day, didn't you? Get on base.
Yeah, but back in the day, not so much anymore, but once upon a time.
Well, Zach,
How you been, man?
I'm doing well. Hope you and your family had a great Easter and are being very safe. I mean, what in the heck are you passing the time with these days?
Man, it's weird, man. We were sitting around yesterday. We got together for Easter, and we all had just ate lunch and sitting around the living room. We're like, all right, let's throw some sports on. That's just what you would usually do, and we don't have that luxury now. So, it's been difficult, man. I mean, we're so used to this time of year being all into spring football and some of the other spring sports that go on. So, I think for me, just trying to enjoy some family time. Trying to look ahead to what we're going to be, talking about and covering this summer, because it's a lot of, a lot of uncertainty about what's going to come up. But the good thing, I think, for Florida fans out there, for people that listen to you and I, Shane, and folks that like to read the coverage, is we can take some time maybe now to do some stories and look back on some things that we usually don't have time for. So that's one thing that, we can provide some nostalgia for Florida fans. That's always good. I mean, we did that, you and I last week, Shane, when we took a trip down memory lane. So, but we're just all trying to do what we can just to kind of pass the time by.
Yeah, you speaking of yesterday, as you mentioned, usually it's tough, especially these days are getting longer and longer, it seems like, and you want some sports to watch. And I'm not one of those kind of guys that enjoys watching old games or what have you, but they showed last year's Masters Sunday round where Tiger won the major, and you forget, because I'm a huge golf guy, Zach. You forget all the great players that were in contention for that tournament. What great golf on Sunday of last year, and man, I mean, 4 of the last 6 golfers to hit Amen Corner on hole 12 hit it in the water, and pretty much handed it to Tiger. But yeah, you got to find something to pass time. So as you mentioned, you have a podcast called Locked on Gators, and y'all are doing, I guess, a poll, or you're just kind of reviewing some of the greatest teams in Florida football history. Talk about so far what teams you have discussed.
Well, we started obviously with the 84 and 85 team, and that was you mentioned the poll. I kind of just put it out there, say, hey, for fans out there, what teams do you guys feel like were the best in school history outside of the national champions? Because everybody always points to the 96 or 06, 08. And I just want to see what some other squads out there that people really revered the most. And, I'll be honest, Shane, I was surprised at how much 1984 got brought up. And I was obviously before my time and not familiar with the history and everything like that. But, it was amazing how many Florida fans still look at that team as one of the best that was ever assembled here. So, it was kind of fun to look back on that team, learn a little bit about it from Robbie Andrew, because he covered them for the Sun Sentinel. And then looking back on the 90 team, I mean, that obviously set the bar when you guys came on with Coach Spurrier. And then to win the first official title in 91, I thought that what you guys did, being able to come back and beat FSU and Tennessee that next season, was huge. Because, I mean, that, to me, Shane, I think that's the standard right there that every Florida fan has for every football season. If you can beat your rivals, if you can go undefeated in conference play, and you can win the SEC title, that's a successful season. Obviously, if you win the national championship, that's a special season. But, I mean, that's really, I think, the bar that was set. And we'll look at, obviously, the national championship teams. And I think it'd take a trip down memory lane with the 2001 team, because that was obviously one of those special seasons as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of people always want to say, of the three national title teams, who they think was the best of those three. It's hard to determine, but obviously, what's crazy is a lot of the people, probably yourself, Zach, because you're very young, don't really remember a whole lot about the 96 team. Probably the '06 and '08 stand out in your mind a little bit more.
Yeah, well, it's funny, man, because that was, fortunately for me, I was born in '89, so '96 for me is like the year that I can remember Florida football. Like that's like on my first man. Obviously, I went to games when I was even younger than that, but so for me, I'm lucky enough that some of those games still stand out in my mind. And what Urban Meyer did during that run that he had was so incredible. But it was just a different league. I mean, it was a different game. He obviously helped kind of revolutionize the sport, much in the same way that Coach Spurrier did. But for me, I mean, I grew up on the fun and gun. So I mean, it's thinking back on those teams, and especially when they really, really had it humming, with all those receivers that Danny had. I mean, that was such a fun group to watch in '96, and they played with a swag, man. I think that loss that they had in the 1995 championship game, that put a chip on their shoulder going into that next season that like really never fell off all the way through.
We're speaking with Zach Abolverdi on the Titan MR hotline from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. You can follow Zach on Twitter at Zach Abolverdi. You can also check out his podcast called Locked on Gators. Zach, you're big into following Gator recruiting. Obviously, not a whole lot going on right now, but let people know, what are coaches allowed to do right now? Are they allowed to just text recruits, call them on the phone? Can they Zoom, video talk with them? What can coaches actually do right now with high school recruits?
Yeah, basically all those things that you just said, and that's happening regularly. I think obviously for players across the country and the coaches, I mean, they want to keep in communication during this time, and make sure that they're maintaining that relationship and maybe even strengthening it, which is hard to probably do over the phone. But you're right, man. I mean, FaceTime, Zoom, seeing all kind of stories already of that type of communication happening. But you know, I said this from the beginning when this all went down and the NCAA suspended recruiting. I mean, it's an awful situation to put any staff in terms of still trying to do their job over the phone. But I feel like Florida is in a better position than most schools in the country to handle this, just because of how well they've been recruiting as of late. I mean, I know it's early, really, really, really early in the 2021 cycle, but just based on where the results were before this thing all got suspended, Florida had the #1 class in the SEC. They had more commitments than anybody else in the country. And Dan Mullen and his staff, they're now, going into their third full recruiting cycle. So they've been around all these coaches in the state. They've been around many of these players now for a couple of years. So the relationship is kind of already there with I would imagine, most of their top targets. That coupled with the fact that Florida just won 10 games in 11 games. So, when they get on the phone or they get on Zoom and FaceTime, these kids are kind of familiar with these coaches because they've been around the block now. And also they kind of look forward to talking to them and getting to know them because they're having so much success at UF. And you can't say that for all the other schools around the country. Imagine if you're Mike Norvell right now trying to build a relationship with these guys, and you can't meet with them. You can't have them come on your campus. You have no track record to speak of in terms of what you've accomplished at FSU. So it's really hard, I think, for maybe kids to get excited for the Seminoles, and maybe some other teams around the country that are experiencing coaching changes, whereas Florida, they're starting to be viewed in a different tier. And I think that's something Dan Mullen and his staff can take advantage of right now.
What is the latest? Is it Zach Evans, the running back that's committed to pretty much everybody in the country and decommitted and is still kind of up in the air right now?
Yeah, he's. I still think that Florida's. From what my understanding, I mean, I think they've done a good job to set themselves up to have him join their football team at some point. It's just a matter of that process, going through. And uh, I think Florida feeling comfortable with everything on his end, him feeling comfortable with Florida and everything on his end. So it's been a weird recruitment, no doubt, Shane. I mean, I don't know how you would treat it if you were the quarterback and this guy's joining the football team, but I definitely think there's going to be some type of a de-recruitment that's going to have to happen with this kid wherever he goes. But at the same time, I do feel like Florida could use him in the backfield. There's no doubt about it.
When you look at we're speaking with Zach Abolverdi, who really knows Gator recruiting, and we all know the recruits that have already signed and committed after last year's signing class. If you had to pick one guy, who do you think can make the most impact next year? And the reason I say this is it's going to be tough because we don't know when college football is going to resume, when they're going to be allowed back on campus. But with the, not being here for the spring and not working out with Savage and doing on the field workouts and things of that nature, if we have a short version of, let's say, get ready to play football, who's that one kid that played in high school last year that can make an impact for the Gators?
Well, I'm going to go Jeremy Crawshaw, the punter from Australia, right? That's the easy answer with Townsend leaving. No, honestly, Shane, I think you probably have to point to one of the early enrollees, even though they didn't get to go through spring ball. But just the fact that those guys had already been on campus, they've gotten established, they've been a part of the team, they went through some of the workouts, in January, February. So I would probably point to one of those players, and I would probably, which is, very unlikely. Usually don't go this way, but I would go to the line of scrimmage. I think that Joshua Braun, the big boy out of Live Oak, man, I think that because physically he's there. I mean, he's 6'6", he's over 300 pounds, and he's a National Merit Scholar. I mean, this kid is smart. So he's going to understand, many aspects of the game. His football IQ is probably off the charts. It just physically and from a playbook standpoint, can he get ready to contribute as a freshman offensive lineman, which is probably the hardest thing to do. But I think that there could be an opportunity there just based on the depth chart, based on his talent level, and he might just be a little bit better than some of the guys that they have returning. He's going to have to prove it. So I would look to him potentially. And then I think even over on the defensive line, I don't think you're going to see either of these guys start. But just because of how talented they are, and then Antoine Powell, he was one of the early enrollees. I know Todd Grantham really likes him. Strong side defensive end out of North Carolina. He's a guy that, again, he'll if he has a good freshman season, it's going to be in that rotation and providing some depth on that defensive line. But you'll be able to see him, I think, make some flashes as a freshman, along with Gervon Dexter. Now he's going to be a fall enrollee or whenever they open this thing back up. So you might only literally see flashes of him because I can't imagine how many reps he's going to get. But at 6'7", 290 pounds, he is a force at defensive tackle. And I think those are three guys that Florida fans will be excited to see. And really to have those three come in on the offensive line, the line of scrimmage to give you some help there. That's what I think Florida maybe needs to take that next step as a team in the SEC.
Gator BTW, burgers, tacos, and wings. Visit them on 39th Avenue. They're open for curbside and delivery. Enjoy their $5 meal, burgers, 2 tacos, or 10 boneless wings, all with kettle chips for only $5. One of our great sponsors. Zach, we got a Facebook Live comment here brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. And Ben says, in any other year, the 1995 team would have been national champions and considered the best, but having lost to Nebraska, who arguably could be the best college team ever, you never hear much about them.
Yeah, it was interesting when I did my poll. This is which teams do you guys think are the best outside of the national champions? I put 95, I put 2001, I put 2009, and I put other. And surprisingly, 1995 received the least amount of the votes of the teams that I named. Other got some votes as well. Like I said, people mentioned 84, 91, but 2001 got the majority of the votes, like 45%. 2009 was right behind them, and then 1995 got like 20-something% of the vote, which I was surprised by. I mean,
Well, the only thing I can think of is maybe there's younger people that were following your poll because they may not know much about that 95 teams. All I can think of.
And I think the other thing, and maybe the ones that do, Shane, that, like you said, that loss to Nebraska and the way that Florida lost, I think put such a stain on that season for so many people, which it shouldn't have. But it's just not maybe remembered as fondly as those other seasons because of how it ended. But I think, like you said, you put that football team in any other season where there's not a Nebraska, they're probably winning the national title.
Yes, I agree totally with that. That was one of the best teams I've seen since I've been a Gator. Zach, so back to the recruiting, gosh, a lot of these big time recruits aren't able to come do their visits, or they're not able to come watch the orange and blue game, visit campus. And, one of the big things during the summer, or not so much the football camps, but, a lot of the big time recruits come in for the 1-day camp, or they come in for the Friday night lights. Do you think, I mean, some of that stuff still may happen. We don't really know, but will that hurt recruiting? Do you think, if they aren't allowed to have those camps and the Friday night light type things?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Shane, and I think you already saw Ole Miss, was it, that suspended all campus activity even further through August, I believe, at the end of August or to August 1st. But that basically canceled out all of their summer camps. So Ole Miss is not going to have any camps, Friday night lights, and we'll see how it plays out with the rest of the SEC and the rest of college football. But if Florida can't have those camps, again, it kind of falls into what I said before. I think that obviously that's going to be the case across the board. So every school is going to be at that disadvantage. However, I do think Florida, because of how established this coaching staff is in the state and around the country, the success that they've had in their first 2 seasons, that it's not going to hurt them as much as a brand new coach or a staff that's experienced some changes, or a staff that has a team that hasn't done well on the field the past couple of years. If they're not able to go out and have kids come in for summer camps and just have them visit and show them another side of the program, that's going to hurt them. Whereas Florida, it's not going to hurt them as much. So one thing that I would say, but this is across the board with all schools, is those summer camps, a lot of time, along with the spring evaluation period, and the spring evaluation period is even more than the summer camps, is these coaches take this opportunity to build their recruiting board for the following years, for the upcoming cycle, for the guys that are going into their junior years, the guys that are going to their sophomore years. A lot of the targets for those classes, they oftentimes get identified at these summer camps and during these spring evaluation periods. So that's going to maybe set the staff back a little bit in terms of the work that they were able to get done ahead of time. But, again, every coaching staff in the country is going to be in that same boat.
Well, Zach, we appreciate you joining the program today. Let everybody know where they can check out your work, check out your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Zach Abolverdi. It's ABOLVERDI. I have some work that'll be coming out here in a couple of weeks as we get ready for the draft. And you guys can listen to my podcast, Locked On Gators, as well. Shane, thanks for having me on, bud.
Hey, anytime, Zach. We appreciate you joining us. Be safe out there. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
For sure, bud. Take care.
All right, that's Zach Abolverdi. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. We're going to get to our This Day in Sports, which is brought to you by Area Rug Masters. Is your whole family stuck at home and tracking in more than usual? Take your rugs to Area Rug Masters for a BOGO rug cleaning. When you mention the code Shane, call 352-448-5999. We have 2 actually this day in sports, and of course they're both centered around the Masters because that's what we would have watched yesterday. But in 1986, Jack Nicklaus wins his record 18th major with a one-stroke victory over Greg Norman and Tom Kite. At age 46, becomes the oldest Masters winner. And sticking with the Masters, in 1997, Tiger Woods wins his first major title, a record 12 strokes ahead of Tom Kite. Shot 18 under to win his first ever green jacket. We're going to shortly here. Let's see. I needed to read a couple of these. Jay on Facebook Live comment, which is brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. He wants to talk some Gator golf, which we had Billy Horschel on a few days ago, and we will have Chris DeMarco in the next couple of weeks talking Gator golf. We're going to take our first time out of the program. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Lito Sheppard. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Coldstone Creamery, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back. Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Hey, folks, Celebration Point's where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Tommy Hilfiger, Hotel Indigo, Nike Medici's, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We will see you at Celebration Point where the Gators come to celebrate. Monday edition of the program. I want to thank Zach Abolverdi for joining us in the first segment. Now we're going to go to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by one of the all-time Gator greats, Lito Sheppard from Jacksonville, Florida. Lito, how are you, buddy?
Hey, good morning, Shane, man. I'm doing good. How about you guys?
We're hanging in there. What's Lito Sheppard passing his time with during this downtime?
Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you, I have a couple of young fellas, my sons that's growing up right now. So they keep me plenty busy just trying to do little exercises, stay up on the house chores and just making sure they stay in shape throughout this little process, really, man.
How old are you? You got them doing backpedaling already?
Trust me, we have our little workout equipment here in the garage. So, I keep them busy, but one's 10 and one's 14.
Okay. All right. Good deal. Well, Lito, we got a bunch of texts and a lot of people are excited that you joined the program and we can't thank you enough. But, one thing I like to start out with most of our former players is who recruited you from the University of Florida? What coach? And secondly, what other schools were you considering besides Florida?
Hey, see, these are some tough. That recruiting question is the tough question right there, because it's funny you asked that in particular one. Just having spent some time just as recently with the AAF and Coach Spurrier and some of the other coaches, we had that same conversation. And when I can remember, it was really two coaches that recruited me, and both of them did an excellent job, and I still love them to this day. But Coach Spurrier Jr. and Coach Jim Collins, and those two guys, I can't say enough good things about them that, they landed me and my family and they made us feel comfortable. And really, that's why I became a Gator. And I guess the second part of that, as funny as it is, Georgia was a close second place. And everything was pretty identical to the programs at that time. And really the only difference maker at that time for me was how close it was to my home, and how far my parents and family had to drive to get to the games. And but it was Georgia was close second, but I was always a diehard Gator from the beginning, though.
I gotcha. When you look at, we got a text here from Daryl. Daryl wants to know, good morning, Lito. The Florida-Georgia game is his favorite game of the year. What was it like playing for you in front of your hometown?
That's exactly what it was. I always took a special approach to that game just because it was in front of my hometown. And it was one of the few chances, since high school that, my hometown got a chance to, see me in Jacksonville play. And I just always tried to, do my best, and just fortunate for the Gators, we was able to come out with some victories and some great plays. And, unfortunate for the Bulldogs, because a couple of those games, they had us on the ropes a little bit.
Hey, you're right. But, Coach Spurrier had tremendous success. He was 11-1 against the Dogs in Jacksonville. We're speaking with Lito Sheppard. If you want to send a text or question for him on the Titan MR text lines, 352-353-7465. You can also send us a Facebook Live comment or question on the Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorney's hotline. So Susan here wants to know on the Titan MR text line, Lito, what is your greatest moment as a Florida Gator?
Oh, man. I really have so many of them. I can name a couple. I particularly just like the punt return in South Carolina. Just having the crowd in the stadium chant my name before that play was like super awesome. Winning the SEC championship, my sophomore year in the Georgia Dome in Atlanta that year, that was super special. That's one of the, few championships that I received, and I've been on some great teams, but that one definitely means a lot. And honestly, fast forward a couple of years post playing, just making it into the University of Florida Hall of Fame, that was definitely a proud moment, and one that I think I hold dearest, really.
Yeah, you. Anytime you get inducted into that Hall of Fame, it's an unbelievable feeling. I had Keywan Ratliff on last week, and I asked him this question, and it pertains to you as well. Is it more exciting to return a punt for a touchdown or take a pick six back?
Ooh. I would honestly say the pick six is a little bit more enjoying. It's so hard to get turnovers, and let alone it's so hard to score on defense. And I think that type of play have a little bit more magnitude with it than returning a punt for a touchdown. But both are very exciting. Both are a chance for defensive guys like us, and we both were slash players, but it gives us a chance to show what we can do with the ball, and I think that's what we really enjoyed about trying to return.
So I asked Keywan this as well, because y'all are two of the best defensive backs to ever play here at the University of Florida, and we've had so many great ones here. In your mind, you can't pick yourself, Lito.
Right.
Who is the best defensive back to ever play at the University of Florida?
Well, I'm going to name a couple guys, and then I'm going to get back to that question. Just before I got to the University of Florida, I always admired, the Anton Lotts, the Wearies, the Tony George, the Larry Kennedys, those guys who definitely played the position at a high level. And, just going through that phase, I really had a chance to play with Keywan. And that guy was pretty awesome, man. Just an overall awareness, ability, and playmaking skills. And just going through the rankings, Joe Hayden did a tremendous job there. Hargraves did an excellent job. Nelson, we got, I'm forgetting a couple, but as far as what I saw, and during our time of competition, not the, slight the competition that other guys played against. But I would have to say Keywan, man. That and his stats would definitely show and prove that, that guy was. We did some special things, within our mindset of the game, and then he was just able to take it to another level with the freedom and the scheme that he was able to be a part of post Spurrier. So I had to give it to him, man.
What do you know who Keywan picked?
Who he picked?
He picked you.
And
I said, man, here you are picking Keywan. That's pretty cool, though. That's pretty cool.
I mean, we competed every day with each other. We practiced. We got better. We picked each other's brains. So, it was tough, during that time. So, I took my hat off to that guy.
Jack says on the Titan MR text line, Lito, who was the toughest wide receiver you had to cover in college and in the NFL?
College and in the NFL. Okay, college. Honestly, and this is just, not bull jiving, but our receivers at Florida every day, the Gaffney, Taylor Jacobs, Cardwell, and then we had a number of young guys at that time. But before those guys, I had a chance to come in and as a freshman and practice against Travis Taylor, Darrell Jackson, Hoggerbrook, Alex Willis, some of those guys, and just competing against some of those different body types and skill sets. And a lot of those guys went high in the draft picks. So I would honestly say just competing against our guys on a daily basis for those, 3 years was my biggest challenges every day. And, when I got to the NFL, that was a whole nother monster of things. But the challenge for me wasn't necessarily the bigger, tall guys, although, like Joe Jaravicious had a couple nice catches because he was about 6'5" on me, but, nothing crazy. It's just, tall. But Terry Glenn used to give me a problem just with his speed and quickness. Like the Santana Mosses, Steve Smiths. I always like to compete against, like with Moss. We had different things that we did against him that took him out of the game, though. And I think Dallas receivers really kind of presented the most issues for me.
We're speaking with Lito Sheppard, UF Hall of Famer, one of the greatest defensive backs to ever play here on the Titan MR Hotline. But first, Tropical Smoothie Cafe has 2 Gainesville locations open for online orders and curbside service. Amazing healthy food and smoothies. And they deliver through Bite Squad and other Eats, and Uber Eats, I should say. Lito, you mentioned, and I think it was your last year, not your senior year, you left early in 2001, correct? Wasn't that your last year?
Yes.
That team, people talk about the greatest teams, and we had Zach Abolverdi, who's doing a story on some of the greatest teams in Florida football history. I think that's a team, and Coach Spurrier will tell you, could have been possibly his most talented team. And unfortunately, I want to say that's the overtime loss against Tennessee that kind of knocked y'all out of the chance to play for a national title. But the talent on that team, as you mentioned, yourself, and offensively, man, they had Riche, Jabbar Gaffney, Taylor Jacobs, and Rexick. Would you say that was your best team that you had when you played here at Florida?
By far. And that is a pretty sensitive, subject there because, we were very talented, and I always kind of argue about that, just talking of football. And I think we were the best team that never won a championship, and that's a knock to us because with all that talent and the ability, we didn't get it done for whatever reasons. But hands down, across the board, I think mentally we were tough enough. Physically, we were tough enough. And, we were breaking records on offense that year. Nobody could stop us. We had solid defense. And, just statistically, I think we were better that year than the previous year or two, when, quote unquote, we did better. But just having things fall the way they did that year kind of, just shook things up a little bit. But man, I would love to put that team against any team any day and, feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, Kyle has a comment on Facebook Live brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. Kyle says, great to see you and hear Lito this morning. Hey, Lito, we got a text here. and it comes from Jackson. He wants to know what your favorite stadium besides the Swamp was to play in.
Oh, I'll tell you, by far, it was in Tennessee. Like that stadium, that game, playing in front of that many stands at that time, that was pretty exciting. And it was tenacious. The crowd was, rough. I mean, they were jacked, and just the atmosphere was electric. And just that whole atmosphere really kind of made you pick up your game. And I think that's why that game was so exciting when we played there.
So are you a superstitious guy, Lito?
A little bit.
Okay, so I think it's cool, and a lot of people don't realize this, but tell us some of your superstitions that you had on game day, because I know certain people have a routine. Did you have like a routine or something that you had to do? Did you have to put your uniform the same way? Did you have to warm up the same way? What was it, Lito Sheppard?
Well, see, I don't know if I should be giving my main secret out, and I don't know if I ever told this out publicly, but I have mentioned this to a few people. I think the biggest X factor, what happened to me when I went to Florida, was before the season even started, before I even stepped on the football field, when I got on campus, I went to that stadium one night. It was probably 12:30, 1 o'clock. And I just went to the very top and just really prayed, meditated, focused on me making plays, just a lot of different scenarios that I just wanted to have happen in that stadium. And I prayed and sat there for about, an hour or two or whatnot. And I really think me making that type of commitment to that process and touching to that, praying for it, really helped me out through my career at Florida, honestly.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Julie wants to know on the Titan MR text line, what was the experience of being Mr. Two Bits like?
That was awesome. Like anytime you get a chance to represent a Gator great that has so much tradition to the stadium, to the program, to the fans, and to the history of the program, that's an honor. And just having control of a stadium to that magnitude, man, that's an amazing orchestrator event right there. So just having the opportunity to do that and it goes well, that was memorable.
We're speaking with Lito Sheppard, UF Hall of Famer, tremendous defensive back. Lito, after your illustrious Gator career, you get drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. Talk a little bit about your experience playing for the Eagles. And obviously, I played 14 years and I never even made it to a championship game. You were fortunate enough to play in a Super Bowl. And not only that, you get to play in a Super Bowl in your hometown. So talk a little bit about how cool that was.
Oh, man, I tell you, that was an amazing experience in itself. It was definitely an eye-opener and a process. And, I think having going to the Eagles at that time was the best thing for me. Just like when I got to Florida, just making that initial first game or two transition into that new league is a big experience and a change of speed. But when I got to Philadelphia, I really didn't have to step in right away and make a huge impact because they had some great corners already. So I got a chance to sit and kind of sparingly play for a year or so, year and a half, and then kind of work my way in there and, became pretty good. But just that whole experience and having that much success with that team, I've always took pride in my game and what I brought to the table. And just fortunate enough, I've been in predicaments to be on other great teams to have a chance to play for it all. So that was pretty special. And, that's one thing I try to take pride in. But, playing in that many championship games and just making it to one Super Bowl was a humbling experience after the fact. Because, when you're going through it and you're on these teams, you think you always have a chance. And even though you're the favorites in your mind, it might not always happen the way it's supposed to. So, and that's kind of how the Super Bowl situation went for me in Jacksonville. It seemed like everything aligned up perfect. I'm a starting cornerback for the NFC East champions, Philadelphia Eagles, playing the Super Bowl in my hometown, Jacksonville, Florida, along with two other guys that's from Jacksonville. So it was kind of like the stars was aligning for us to make history in our hometown. And it just unfortunately didn't work out that way. But, the experience was awesome. Just being and having an opportunity to compete at that level is awesome. And you always like to come away with that ring. But that's just, kind of what I kind of experienced in my collegiate and professional career. I was on teams that had great chances and competed for that championship, but just quite didn't get it. But, I have some conference championships, some individual accolades that helped, but I never really got that big national championship, Super Bowl ring. So, other than that, I'm proud of the teams that I've played with and been able to compete with, but just always fell a little short.
Yeah, when you speak of your career there with the Eagles, they had some tremendous defenses when you came into the league. And you were an outside corner. When you were a youngster with I can't remember if Troy Vincent and those guys were still there, or Brian Dawkins or not, but did they ever put you at the nickel position at all?
Well, when I first got drafted by the Eagles, they had Troy Vincent, which was a Pro Bowl corner that year. Bobby Taylor went to the Pro Bowl that year. And then Al Harris was the nickelback at that time.
That's right. That's right.
And, all three of those guys were, starters in the league for a number of years. And, after that. And actually, so the situation happened was, Sheldon Brown got drafted second round right behind me and to Philly. And his body type, his style of game and play was more suitable for the dime nickel slash position in that role, just being more physical at that time. And with my abilities, it was more speed, agility, and quickness and ball skills. So I was always going to be more so on the outside within that scheme. The nickelback position, it may be a third corner coming in, supposedly playing slot inside positions, but that's not always the case depending on your scheme. So I really never played inside slots, and I was always a number 1, 2 / outside corner. So they kept it as that and just kind of filled in, other ways.
Yeah. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Come in and experience the Center State difference. To learn more, visit centerstatebank.com. Center State Bank, member FDIC. We're speaking with Lito Sheppard on the Titan MR hotline. Lito, so I don't think people realize how difficult it is to cover folks in the NFL man to man. Did you have more problems with the shifty, smaller type receivers, which you really don't see in the NFL that much anymore, or the big guys like the Julio Jones built type receiver? Which one was more difficult for you to cover?
Personally, it was the more shiftier guys. Just for I would say it like this. I would say about 3 big guys made nice big catches on me throughout my career. But as far as giving up a number of yards and number of catches, it's been more challenging to stop the smaller receivers from getting those type of numbers. Now, granted, you try to prevent every pass play, but say like a Plexico Burris, he's made a big play here and there, not necessarily on me, but in our games that he's a big 6'6" guy. I can remember when we played against like Larry Fitzgerald. His just body and position is almost like boxing out and playing basketball sometimes. So some things is just unpreventable. You just have to have, other areas of the game pick up to help you in that. But as far as straight one-on-one, man-to-man coverages, none of the big guys never really gave me problems in that aspect because they could never really get that much separation. They use their bodies more so than getting separation. But the quick guys, they're the ones that can get separation and give, your problems and making big plays.
We're speaking with Lito Sheppard. Lito, you were fortunate enough you coached with Coach Spurrier in the alliance there with the Orlando Apollos. How did you enjoy that? Unfortunately, it didn't last very long. So, but how did you enjoy coaching with the head ball coach?
That was an awesome experience right there. Just having the opportunity to learn, things from a preparation standpoint, from a coach's view, and the amount of time and work and effort that goes into it was super awesome and invaluable to me for experience. And, just being in that league and not having all the resources like an NFL, you really had to learn and do a lot of the preparation work from the ground yourselves. So that was a lot of knowledge for me to take in, which I enjoyed that process. And it just really gave me a stepping stone to, hopefully get into coaching a little bit later in my life here.
Yeah, Susan wants to know on the Titan MR text line, what is Lito Sheppard doing these days?
Well, believe it or not, I'm still finishing up my degree. I'm taking some online classes now, still from Florida, working on that. I'm on schedule to be finishing here in December, January area. So as I continue to finish that, try to continue to stay around my kids and their growth process and coaching them, and really just kind of preparing for that next phase, in which I don't know yet. Coaching maybe, but we're going to see.
Well, I know you follow the Gators, and Dan Mullen's taken back over our program the last 2 years, has done a tremendous job. When you watch the Gators play the last couple of years, what are your thoughts, and are you excited of what Dan Mullen's brought to this program?
I am. I'm really excited. I think he's brought back that swag, that flair, that commitment to excellence, and that total involvement within the program like Coach Spurrier had. When you get alumni involved in the process of building and continuing the program, I think that's invaluable because of how historic the program and their players are. So when you show love to the people who helped build it, I think you can definitely build it back and stronger. And I think that's what has been the foundation of his plan, and which it entails in his staff. And, that has brought back a lot of, new ideas and different ways to, get Florida back on top.
We got a Facebook Live comment brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. It comes from Brian. He says, best of luck finishing your degree, Lito. Good for you. Thanks for all the great memories. We appreciate that comment, Brian. Rick on Facebook Live brought to you by Pound Hurt. And I ask all the players that played for this guy, any good HBC stories, Lito? You got to have a few.
Oh, man. I have so many. And, I tell you, I remember it was my junior year. We always joke about this because I was playing pretty good, but I really wasn't making too many big plays my junior year. And I think it was Gaffney and Riche. We were joking something at practice one day, and maybe they had caught a pass on me or whatnot, and they were trying to say I was sorry and this and that. So they went up to Coach Spurrier and was like, Coach, man, you get him out of there, man. He's sorry, Coach, this and that, right? So Coach, his comment was, yeah, made many plays. I guess, Lito, you just ain't got it anymore. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of funny, Yeah. And, it was just one of those joking, comments. But, it was all good. And I came back and made a bunch of plays after that and whatnot. But it was all great. But that was just one of the funniest comments that, he made to me, so to say.
Yeah, there's nobody like him, and I, you played in the league for a very long time. You played for him in college for 3 years, and you were able to coach with him. If people actually knew how I don't want to say prepared, but his style of preparation, his style of coaching, his style in the meetings, his style with the playbooks. People be going, how in the world does this guy won a game?
Right. Hey, that's funny. That is funny you say that. And I would say it's magical, man. It's almost like a freestyle rapper, like a Jay-Z type, because you wonder where does he store all these plays in his mind. And when like you say, when he preparing them and writing them down, he keep them with him and on a single piece of paper. And everything, throughout the week, he go and make his changes, however. But it's amazing how he can script a game and the offense and orchestrate it and just remember all of that stuff like he does, man.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It is so crazy. Well, Lito, we appreciate you taking the time to join the program today. Good luck with that degree, my man. Keep plugging away. We'll be watching to see if you become a coach one day or what have you. And stay safe over in Jacksonville, buddy.
Hey, I definitely appreciate you, Shane. And thanks for having me, man, anytime. And definitely go Gators.
All right, that's Lito Sheppard, UF Hall of Famer, one of the best defensive backs to ever play, to ever wear the orange and blue. We're going to take our last time out of the program. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey, time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Coldstone Creamery, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the Advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. I just want to let everybody know Jackie Spreads, who's currently on leave, is brought to you by Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and the surrounding areas. Once again, we want to thank Zach Abolverdi and Gator great Lito Sheppard for joining the show. Tomorrow's program, Tuesday, we're going to have good old Buddy Martin from Gator Bait join us, and also former Gator and Marshall quarterback Eric Kresser. A lot of people know about Kresser's story. Backed up Danny Werfel. Ended up transferring to Marshall, won a national title there. So we're looking forward to talking to Eric. He's a high school football coach down in South Florida, and he'll have some good stories as well. Also want to let everybody know about Campus USA Credit Union, your credit union for life. 20 locations in North Central Florida and a supporter since inception. Locations are open for drive-through, ATM, and curbside service. Learn more at www.campususcu.com. But yeah, it was a good show today. Really, really appreciate Zach and Lito for joining us. That's pretty much going to be a wrap on a Monday's edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning. Be safe out there, folks. Make sure you tune in, same place, same time tomorrow. You will hear Buddy Martin and former Gator Eric Kresser. That's it. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.